Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to our afternoon webinar. Today is the 9th of November. My name is Eric, and we are going to talk about the design landscape within the product experience space and beyond. So joining me today are our panelists from Studio Norm. We have Mr. David Tam. From Trigger Design, we have Ms. Chan Wai Lim. And last but not least, from Dell, we have Mr. Bin Kai. So just to introduce myself to you guys, my name is Eric. I'm a lecturer here at the Product and Industrial Design Diploma at Temasek Polytechnic School of Design. Welcome one and all. Okay, welcome students, welcome colleagues, as well as industry partners and fellow creatives. So to take us through today's program, allow me to just very quickly show you what is on our agenda. For the first 15 minutes or so, I will be introducing the product design landscape. Thereafter, we will have a fireside chat with our three panelists, Wai Lim, David, and Kai. And at the closing end, we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming syllabus. I think a lot of you guys are here to understand a little bit more about the transition from where the diploma is, or rather where the diploma has been, and where we're moving towards. So to begin with, perhaps let's look at the history of product design. But before all of that, okay, with to be perfectly candid, today we'll be introducing a lot of acronyms to you guys. There'll be a lot of terminologies that you might have to be familiar with, right? So to help us all, my colleagues Julius will be putting all of these terms into the meeting chat, as well as some useful links, right? So that as we go along, in case you ever get lost in the terminology, you can always refer to these terms for your own benefit. Right, let's get in proper. So the industrial design sphere started from the Industrial Revolution. So steam engines, mass consumer products, and amalgamation between products and art throughout movements from the 1900s and onwards. So why industrial design, right? Because at the end of the day, these are machines that were used to produce our physical day-to-day products, as well as machines that would help in solving our day-to-day work, making our lives more livable. As we fast forward through the majority of the 20th century, we enter this sphere of the World Wide Web in the 1990s, right, where you have the digitization of products coming about around about the 2010s or so. Within that period of time, what we start to see is the increasing usage of the internet in our products. So in terms of how all of these products come about to be in terms of design. So, for example, graphic designers were transiting from their traditional comms roles and into interaction design. There was a convergence of graphic designers and industrial designers towards interaction design for screen. Industrial design, as a term, was more commonly used in the US, while product design was more common in Europe. And within that space, interaction design was a separate practice and a silo within the product development team. But with the introduction of the iPhone in 2007, this mobile device allowed for seamless internet access. And so therefore, interaction designers were required to fulfill the role of product designers within the digital product space. That said, there was a convergence, okay, where you have traditional graphic designers who are more visual comm, and they converge with, they allow to this convergence between the traditional browser and native application. So in terms of the user experience, you could access the internet through your traditional desktop browser, but of course with the iPhone, you can now access the internet through these native applications. As we move on into more recent history, in 2010s, we start to see terms like the Internet of Things, or IoT, start to be bandied about, right? And this means a space where products are interconnected to one another, okay, where they work together, and this also led to an increased demand for interaction design, because we're not just talking about a single product, we're talking about multiple products that exist within, let's say, our homes, right? And in 2015, we then start to move towards this thing called the phygital solution space, right? For the industry, it was to demarcate the distinction between industrial and product design. That's it, it's not for all countries. Industrial design was more for appearance and manufacturing, whereas product was more for the respective problems and needs, whether it's for the user, for stakeholders. Now, in the space of interaction design, it was more known as digital product design. And then in this particular time period, 2015 onwards, the user experience technology terminology started to be used more widely, although it tend to be split up amongst three main domains, whether it's architecture for space experience, digital design, as well as physical product design. Okay, in short, so this UX space is three domains: physical, digital, and space. And in 2018 onwards, we start to see the emergence of this term called service design, where we get individual touch points that come under the purview of a service designer who oversees the entirety of the end-to-end journey. So there's more macro thinking that's required, but each of these touch points requires its own UX space, right, where each of these aspects are linked to it. And all this now links to a major shift in the industry, right? I think all of us are familiar with products like the Apple Watch or perhaps a Nest, right? And these are products that blend digital and physical design, right? And has actually been kicked off through the iPhone from 2017. This precipitated huge change in the way products are created. They're no longer created in isolation, no longer individual products, but products that are interconnected to one another through the internet. So in terms of what this means for creatives who are servicing the respective companies or the respective industries, there was a huge sign of how the non-design sector is starting to adopt creatives and hiring creatives. So for example, in 2019, right, 2/3 of designers were hired by the non-design sector. So when we talk about design sector being, for example, like agencies or design firms, now we're talking about non-design sector, whereby, for example, banks, F&B, and government, right, starting to get on board with the idea of incorporating creatives into the way they solutionize. And so therefore, for example, in terms of F&B, I think we're all quite familiar with ordering from McDonald's, rather than in previous years, we will walk up to a cashier with our order. Now we go to a big touchscreen and we start to key in our orders. And then this has also spilled over into other areas in the security industry, in government. For example, throughout the pandemic, all of us got used to Trace Together. We got used to things like using SingPass, right, to log in to, for example, update our passports, right? But so this is just a snapshot of how we see the design space, not just being utilized through design or traditional design, but more in the non-design sector. So over here, what we are looking at is some snapshots of a DAC report that just came out this year, right? What we wanted to talk about is how this report, which was initiated by the government, okay, mentions that we need to solve issues on a larger scale rather than just focusing on individual touch points. So if you look at the diagram on the left, you start to see the different phases of how design has been deployed in our society at large. Start from design 1.0 through to design 4.0 now, where we're looking at much larger scale issues, right? This is because we start to recognize, or the government start to recognize, that design is no longer just about individual products or individual solutionings, but rather a network of solutions that work in tandem together, right? And from that point of view, it means that the skill sets required of the individuals to work out such solutions are quite specific, right? So for example, you look at the screen, at the diagram on the right, right, you can see that out of the 10 skill sets that are required, 7 are design related, right? And out of the 7, we believe that actually the key areas are the analytical, complex, and critical thinking, okay, which product designers have to become competent at, but at the same time, they do require a longer runway to build up such competencies. At the same time, we also need to understand that when students graduate, or rather we start to recognize that upon graduation, students, especially for polytechnic students, they have multiple pathways, right, that function within the product design space and the business ecosystem, right? Each job role requires skill sets that are quite divergent, right? But the core skill sets remain rooted in the product design education space, as well as the aforementioned analytical, complex, and critical thinking. So over here, what we see is how the government has mandated, right? These are the three economies which Singapore needs to immediately focus on to tackle before 2030: the digital economy, the green economy, and the care economy. So what does that mean for us as a course? So we understand that this is the current design process workflow, right? There are generally a few phases, but we can break it down into 5 main areas: research analysis, synthesize, design, and prototype. In the first 4 stages, right, they're usually done by a UX team or UX designer, right? They have fundamental need to understand business needs and therefore are primarily in-house and function as part of the research team to identify issues and opportunities. The latter half of the process, right, is done after the visualization and low fidelity prototyping work is done. Okay, the work for right? Who does it? So in this case, the industry currently lacks. What it currently lacks is this dedicated in-house UX team. So this also leads on to why design thinking is popular, because at this point in time, companies are starting to recognize that there is an insufficiency of designers, and therefore design thinking needs to become mainstream. And in fact, it has. I think we can start to observe how design thinking has filtered down from corporations through to higher education, and now even into secondary and primary school. This facilitates the general understanding of the design ways of thinking, and it's something that we hope to leverage on, right? So that it's something as a cost of students, this will form a baseline of understanding. So let's talk a little bit about hiring trends, right? So one thing for us to highlight is that there are over 5.6K jobs last month, right? With roughly a salary range of around 4 to 6K. And this is like brand new information, right? It goes to show that there's a very clear recognition within the industry, and not just within the private sector, but also public sector, that digitization is here. Digitization is here to stay, and digitization is also the way forward. From that point of view, it means that things cannot stay the same. Things cannot stay the way they were. We have to be forward-looking, and we have to figure out how we're going to respond to the challenges and the needs of the private sector, as well as the government and public sector by proxy, right, in terms of skill sets and curriculum, which we'll talk a little bit more in the subsequent portion. So what is the difference between, let's say, industrial design, experience design, product design, service design? I think all of us, have heard different versions of the same story. So I'm going to try and make it quick and give you a very simple example. So imagine you are an employee of a shoe company and you're charged with creating new innovations in running shoes, right? First of all, you would start by studying shoes, right, to improve their performance, comfort, and style, because that's generally what people would imagine that you would do. And that's kind of where things start to split off between product design and industrial design in terms of product-focused innovation, right? So if you look at this little chart here, product design, the process involves the imagining, creating, and iterating products that solve user problems, address specific needs in a given market. Whereas for industrial design, there is definitely a focus on the physical appearance, functionality, and manufacturability, right? And there's far more involvement in the development cycle. But when you look at experience design, what is experience-focused innovation? It means that we're looking at a larger context of running shoes. It means that we are looking at the wider range of activities that customers engage in relation to running. So you remember earlier on we talked about creating improve a running shoe. Now we're looking at the athletic experience. And so what it means for us is that we now want to look at how we can, as a user experience designer, start to provide meaningful and relevant experiences to these users, and to look at the entirety of the process of acquiring and integrating the product. So we're not just looking at the product in and of itself. The product exists together with perhaps digital solutioning as well as spatial architecture. So experience-focused innovation can be seen in a lot of different areas. And in fact, this is where our major project students are already looking into. So from that point of view, using the aforementioned example, right, the activity is now being perceived as a, in terms of exercising, right, currently the activity is being perceived as a performance activity, and therefore solutioning, is maybe kept in a certain space. But our students are starting to look at how the solution is not just in one space, but perhaps in multiple spaces. And in the case of one of our major project students right now, Paul, right, he's looking at some solutions that perhaps are inspired by Pokemon Go, right, where it's about gamification, right, and within that solutioning, his proposed solutioning, there are perhaps digital interactions and physical touch points as well. So I'm just mindful of time, so I'm going to try and see if I can move a little bit quicker, right? So comparing between industrial design, product design, and experience design, what is service design? So let's look at another example. In this case, Singapore Airlines and an airline scenario, right? So in this case, maybe Singapore Airlines might hire a UX designer to develop an app that helps people make and manage their bookings, right? So when we zoom out at the entirety of the process, okay, we can see that an airline is not just planes flying in the sky. It's actually a service made of many different touch points, and the mobile app is just one of them. So other touch points include the website, departure lounge, so on and so forth, right? Down to the eating and the sleeping experience of the plane. So from that point of view, a complex service like, taking a journey overseas by taking an airplane might comprise of hundreds of different touch points. So over here, this is where service designer comes in. So the airline will more likely than not consult a service designer if they're, especially the focus is at the system level, okay, and then they can focus on pre-boarding experience, flight experience, and post-boarding experience, or post-flight experience. So from that point of view, service designers are interested in user experience of individual touch points, and they focus on how these touch points are connected, right, and the entirety of the journey and experience of that journey. So in summary, UX designers will focus on the experience of individual touch points, whereas the service designer focuses on the full end-to-end experience, which includes multiple touch points. Right. So at this stage, I hope you guys, I've not confused you guys, and I hope that you guys are following along with me. What I'd like to quickly move on to is the fireside chat, right? But first, allow me to share with you a little bit more in depth about my panelists, right, who are going to be with us today. First of all, Mr. Look Bin Kai, who is currently a senior UX designer with Dell Technologies. All right, everyone say hi to Bin Kai.
Hello, hi everyone.
So Bin Kai has a very deep experience in the UX space, right? Having worked first at Dell, previously at Design Soldier, and beyond that, right? We'll let him talk a little bit more about his work experience as we go along with the questions. Allow me to quickly move on to my other panelist, Chow Wai Lim, who is also the founder and principal designer for Trigger Design. All right, so very illustrious career. Everyone knows who Wai Lim is, right? Multiple award winner, and also achiever of more than 20 design patents in the US. How amazing is that? So thank you, Wai Lim, for joining us today. I'm so honored to have you here with us. I think a lot of students are looking forward to hearing what you have to share. And last but not least, Mr. David Tam. David, also one of our adjunct lecturers as well, right? Managing Director for Student Norm Design Consultants. Also another illustrious industry member. And dare I say, the most good looking of all of us today. And so also a multiple award winner. And what has been such a wonderful contributor to the course because serving with us as an adjunct lecturer since I think 2015, right? Okay, so to kick off our fireside chat, the first thing we'd like to do is to share with you this QR code, right? You can either scan the QR code or the link will be in the meeting chat right now, right? And you can go in, and if you have any questions for our panelists, please go ahead and type in your questions. We do have a few questions to kick it off. So allow me to first share that fireside chat, sort of like a question with you guys right now. Okay, And so we'll start off with the first question, which I think I'll allow Bin Kai to answer. Right. So the first question is, based on your work experience, what is UX to you, and what aspects of UX were covered in each of your roles? So Bin Kai, take it away.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so I think before I start sharing what UX means to me, I'll probably just share a bit about my design background, mainly because the perception of UX itself has evolved throughout my design journey. So I majored in industrial design during my tertiary education. And in fact, if I put aside internships and freelance roles, I was also an industrial designer in my first full-time role at the medtech sector, designing blood pressure wearables. So back then, in a team of slightly less than 20, I was the only designer working with individuals from other functions. So you have people from business, you have people from sales, you have engineers, you have clinical specialists, and whatnot. So as you can see, being the only designer, even though I signed up to be an industrial designer, right, I soon realized that I had to work on a lot of things out of just my ID scope. So back then, I was doing a lot of back then I thought it was random tasks, but on hindsight now, I was doing a lot of user experience tasks and approaches. So back then, UX was a very muddy term to me. So to provide a bit of context, previously when I was designing blood pressure wearable concepts, for example, I was also doing a lot of user experience tasks like interviewing people, conducting quick skill usability tests, shadowing and observing my end users, and even making sense of data, so on and so forth. So because I was involved in a lot of activities, I was getting a huge breadth of exposure. But back then I felt that even though I signed up to be an industrial designer, I was doing a whole lot of other random tasks that I was not equipped to do well. So I realized I was missing very critical skills, and I was not able to communicate my design concepts well and convince stakeholders or get buy-in support for my design. So I give you an example. In design schools, our lecturers, the students, we're all design trained, right? So everyone has certain understanding of the design process and they understand the value of the design process. But when you go into the corporate world, it is very different. You have engineers that are more focused on the data sets. You have your CEO that is more focused on like the ROI and the value proposition, right? So how do you then tailor each of your communication to each of the different stakeholders and convince them that your idea is useful? So because of that, I felt that there was a certain knowledge gap, and that drove me to jump onto a UX study program. And that was also where I joined Design Sojourn as a design consultant, doing user experience design. And currently, right now, I'm at Dell doing UX design as well, more product centric. So what I would say is that throughout the years, a common aspect of UX to me is having the ability to drive innovation and facilitate meaningful conversations with various stakeholders using design thinking methodologies. So whether is it the CEO, the engineer, or whoever, I'm able to tailor my communication style to kind of address their objectives for the business. So if I could just summarize this, user experience design to me is, in very simple terms, is really about putting the end users first. Whether is it your clients, whether is it your design partners, whether is it your end users, it's really about understanding, empathizing with them throughout the entire design process.
Thank you, Bin Kai. Actually, there's a part that really caught my attention. You talked about this ability to drive innovation. So in terms of value proposition, right? How does that relate in terms of like where, how do, from your point of view as a UX designer, how did you translate, from maybe how do you create value, right, within the company?
Okay, so to me itself, when I think about innovation, and if I quote Ideal's design thinking, right, it's basically a human-centered approach that combines three major aspects of things. So you have, what is desired, what is feasible, and what is viable. So in a way, when we talk about desirability, we talk about the users, right? So we want to create a product that users want, or that addresses a certain problem. And then if we talk about what is feasible, we need to make sure that in terms of technology and usability, it works well. And then we talk about viable. I think that's one of the most important things for people that are doing business, right? Whether can it make money and whatnot. So I think if I could summarize it, innovation alone is not really just about a designer staying siloed at a single department doing his sketches or just doing the back end work, but it's really across existing across the verticals of a company and having the ability to kind of drive conversations with other stakeholders and really to convince them that, hey, this idea works from a desirability point of view, viability and feasibility point of view.
you so much, Mikael. So I'd like to also open up maybe to the second question. And maybe just since you've been talking about your work experience and how the role has changed over the years, or how your different roles have looked like, could you maybe just quickly share with us what have you observed in terms of how the UX landscape has changed over the years?
All right. So I think Eric, you shared. Sorry, this question is for me, right? Okay. Yeah. So I think Eric, you shared.
So later on, Wai Ling and David can jump in as well.
All right, I'll just share first, perhaps. So I think Eric, you shared earlier on that certain industry trends have evolved rapidly, right? And this also, as a result, redefined the design landscape over the years. So in fact, you shared about Industrial Revolution and then the World Wide Web and whatnot. So we are already shifting, or have already shifted, from a product dominant mindset to a service dominant mindset. So think about it. During the Industrial Revolution, the goal was to enable product efficiencies, right? We wanted machines to be faster. We wanted to optimize manufacturing processes and production lines. But then as time progresses, consumers' demands and expectations have started to shift. And the reason being is because, eras are changing, for example. Technologies are getting better, right? And even the most latest one, the global pandemic that we can all relate to, right? COVID has redefined the way we looked at, work and the way we look at life, for example. So because of this constant changing consumer needs, businesses are forced to innovate, right? And if you don't innovate and consider touch points of your user, you will lose behind. You kind of lag out. So I give everyone a very relatable case study that I feel that once I share this, you understand what I mean. So nowadays a lot of younger consumers, right? We prefer going to Don Don Donki over Cold Storage. And if you're familiar with that place, right, you kind of realize that that place has a very crazy layout. It's very messy. It's not like a conventional cold storage where there are organized shelvings. In terms of aesthetics wise, it's questionable, right? They have a lot of random colorful visuals that just pop up. And, there's this really constant irritating theme song that just keeps playing. And so honestly, if you pitch all these ideas to your boss without any context, you'll probably get fired, or, you just shoot your idea down. But what was so successful about this is that Donki was able to understand their end users well, and they catered some of these innovation ideas to redefine how supermarket could be. So they delivered the concept of curation, right? Every time I go to Donki, to me it's like a new experience. I'm discovering something new, as a part to that whole idea of replenishment, where I just need to stock up supplies. So Donki is just one of the examples that they kept up with the users' trends and the users' needs and stayed relevant in the industry. Yep.
Thank you, Mikael. That actually was quite a relatable example in terms of Donki and how just experientially it's so different from a traditional supermarket. Maybe Wai Ling, would you like to weigh in a little bit about this question about how UX landscape has changed over the years?
Okay, I started off my first job as an industrial designer in 1999. I graduated from Temasek Poly. I'm the 9th batch. Then design is slightly different. It's very focused. So to the brief that we receive, right, is really like, hey, design a mobile phone, and design a laptop, or design a mouse. So it's really like very focused. Not that say that it's no good. But as kind of a year go by, right, I've been practicing that, and I observed that design brief has changed. It's definitely because of what Ping Kai just said. Design trend change, user habit change, and technology advance, and user expectation changes also. So we start looking at like how do we design things as an ecosystem. Then you kind of look into how do you design things as an ecosystem, everything works well together and all this. Then after probably a few years back later, maybe 10 years later, the focus become more on user journey. That is actually when experience design comes in. Experience design is really about understanding the user, understanding what they need, what they value, their ability, and also their limitation also. Yeah, there's no point kind of suggesting or proposing idea without knowing their something that they can't do. And that's probably the past few years, the focus of my experience design kind of evolved. I went to consultancy, and then I went to Dell also. I was 9.5 years in Dell. Very what I observe is also for the corporate, you'll notice that the design team used to be, when I'm in Dell starting, it is called industrial design and usability group. So corporate changed their name also. They want to kind of make sure that experience is the more focus. So most of the design group or team in the corporate, like they will change their name to like in Dell, it changed to experience design group. So very focused on experience, and experience means what? Experience really means that user focus centric design. Yeah, so this is kind of the evolution of expectation, and the role of designer has changed. Yeah, along the way. Yeah, maybe that's all for me right now. I will add on. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Wai Lim. David, would you like to weigh in on this topic?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Thank you. So perhaps I can come in from a business owner, design business owner's perspective, and also share a bit of the perspectives that I receive from my client, right? So we talk about this request for UX, UI design. So this trend doesn't only occur with us as a designer. In fact, this influence has also spilled over to the clients who are not design trained. They know what you mean or what they want by an experience. So previously, when we started out in early years, we were only asked to design a certain solution or a certain product. But now, the ask of us or the brief to us is to design the experience. So when in the initial time when I just first heard about this request of David or your company Studio Norm, could you design this experience for us? It really changed the ballgame. We would not be able to think of a single product, right? But we have to think about the before, right, to the usage of the product, to the after usage of the product, be it servicing, be it maintenance, be it being flexible enough to evolve and have sustainability to continue to work with the space, or if it changes in the future. So it's not only us that are being affected by this. I would say it's becoming a global trend, a worldwide trend. Even that our customers who are not trained in design are able to use these terms, okay, to prompt for their design or prompt solutions for us. So it is, I would say, the best time, or in fact, all right, the very need of us designers now to think of a holistic solution. And in this case, we know this is called service design. So beware of this. It is a trend that will only grow and only be asked of you more. Thank you.
And from that point of view, because I want to quickly segue into the kind of like the third question, which is, what do you see? What have you observed? I mean, you talked a bit about, from the clients, clients' behavior having changed, clients being, a lot more aware of like how they need their businesses. I think COVID, for example, was a big catalyst for how businesses started, running, changing their value proposition, so to speak. But were there any other changes in the product design industry that you observed in the past 10 years, beyond the clients, beyond, maybe, I mean, you work in the interior design space, but, having rooted in the industrial design kind of background. So maybe tell us a bit more about any other observations in terms of, wider changes.
The big change that we will see, of course, it trickles down from the request of the client. The client requests a much more wider scope or knowledge of you. And that will boil down to the skill set that you possess. So it's not only the pure industrial design thinking and skills, model making that is required, but it's a whole lot more. Okay, which I'm very happy to see that PED is walking towards that path, because we are equipping them with research methodologies. To find out how to tackle the experience of the space or to create a new experience of the space, it has to go through that lot of research. Right? So the research methodologies and tools, okay, that is one big area that has magnified. Okay, previously it could be a portion of it, but this portion has magnified greatly. All right, and also the ability to be able to empathize a lot more. Not only with one user, now you have to think about a solution which involves many, many other users that are to be involved and to come to use this space or this product itself. So the mindset of, I would say, soft skills has risen a lot more, all right, to impart or even overcoming the hard skills of a designer.
Thank you, David. Maybe I'll jump back to Wai Lim. From your point of view, what other changes have you observed? You know, David talked about wider scope of knowledge, research methodologies, empathy, and having to design for multiple user stakeholders, as well as soft skills. Anything else that you observe from your point of view?
Okay, I think more of also the digital part of it, because recently I think the digital part it plays a big impact. So since it's enabler for multiple experience, multiple touch point, from awareness, from experiencing it, from even kind of after sales experience. So when we kind of design a solution or propose a solution, not only the product itself, whether it's a digital or a hardware, you have to consider even before how and design around it, and even after you use it, right, you have to consider the holistic experience. There's quite a lot like Jay Bin Kai had touched on.
Yeah. Well, Bin Kai, do you have anything to add to what Wai Lim has shared? Wai Lim and David have shared?
Sorry, wait, sorry, I didn't hear you. Were you talking to me? Sorry, I missed that part.
No, no worries. I just wanted to see if there's anything else you wanted to add on, or from your point of view,
Okay.
plus to like wider changes to product design industry.
So I'm definitely not as senior as Wai Lim and David, so they probably have experienced it a lot more. But I think from my perspective, I would think that the biggest change is the mindset. So I think back to the point, Eric, where you shared, many companies outside the design sector are starting to adopt the design thinking approach. And I think this really, in a way, we have to thank our predecessors, because design at the very beginning was kind of a skill that wasn't as popular, right? Kind of shunned upon. When you tell your parents, in the past you want to design, it's very questionable. But in recent years, design thinking has found success in many corporations like Starbucks, Airbnb, so on and so forth. So a lot of people are starting to understand the value of design. So traditionally, innovation itself, happens from an inside-out approach, right? Maybe, the management thinks that this is relevant. Okay, let's implement this. Or, okay, let's implement our ideas based on teams. Today, we want to, we just brought a certain team, just very sporadic and random. But right now, we are embracing the idea of an outside-in approach, whereby we think from the user's perspective, and we understand through the lens of the end users, and we come up with solutions by putting them at the forefront. So to me, mindset is the biggest change. I mean, to me, personally, the biggest change. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I'm just going to, it sounds like a game show. I'm going to run through some quick fire, sort of like, talking about some of the top 3 hard or soft skill sets that you believe are most relevant for immediate future. So they can be fundamentals or future-centric skills. So, Bin Kai, maybe let's start with you. What do you think are these top 3 skills of top of it.
I think the first one is empathy. I think if you are a designer or you want to be a designer, this is the very first skill you need to have. Because if you don't have empathy, then you're probably in the wrong industry. Yeah, but so as a UX designer, you know, when I'm doing my research, I like to think of myself as like an undercover cop or a detective, right? Like you go down to the site, you observe people, you shadow people, you understand what are their latent needs and pain points. So that to me, one of the best feelings is really getting that aha moment, like, oh, you know, now I realize why this user is acting this certain way. And then, you know, it changes the dynamics of, you know, what you're trying to solve, right? I think the second one is something that I've struggled at the very early stages of my career, and it's something that I'm still trying to better in, which is communication and collaboration skills. So not just communicating with, you know, the designers that you work within your team, but kind of like communicating with all the other stakeholders, because from a practical point of view, everyone is involved in the business, so everyone has a certain share and buy-in into the idea that you're proposing. And I think the last one is adaptability, because design, the paradigms of design is changing very rapidly, right? You know, Eric, you talked about user experience, service design, industrial design. Honestly, sometimes I'm also quite confused, but I think the whole idea is that, you know, don't worry so much about all these different terminologies. Just be adaptable to the growing demands of the industry. And I think, you know, the most important thing is to really understand what your end users want and to think big, right? So you can implement small, but think big and understand what are the different touch points that will be affected by your design outcome. Yep.
Thank you, Bingkai. Maybe back to Wai Lim, top 3 skill sets from your perspective.
3 skill sets. I think persuasion skill, you're able to storytell. But storytell in a short time frame, because in a corporate and all this, right? You need to get your context and get your proposal up. Make sure that your audience understand you within 5 minutes, right? How do you do that? It's a hard skill set. That's the reason why that I really stress that when I teach the student, I kind of emphasize that, hey, first 5 minutes, get your message through, straight to the point, what you want to do, what you want to propose, clear, sharp communication, very important, or else if the worst thing is being misunderstood, right? So if you are being misunderstood from the start of your presentation, people will ask you why will you do that and don't understand you, and you don't even have the chance to show your concepts, right? So the first part of communication is important. Second is really about quick visualization. Nothing new. It's really about how you articulate your design. So in order to show your design, whether it's a hand sketch or a digital sketch, to me is important. Or even a quick prototype if you are not good in sketching. Hand sketch, digital sketch, and prototyping to visualize and capture your proposal in terms of what experience are you proposing, what is the new experience that I think that's very important, because it's really down to skill set in terms of visualization. Yeah, so this become a whole group that I thought that is still important. Of course, the growing things that skill set that hard skill set they have is really about multimedia, because last time when we design is really about how you style things well initially. Now we're talking about experience. How do you communicate experience with a sketch, with a rendering? Maybe it's not enough, you know. So that's when multimedia comes in. If there's more and more requests in terms of multimedia that need to show, need to tell, need to story tell and articulate the new senses of experience or the new proposal of experience. That's also important. Last one, similar with Bingkai, empathy. Definitely we want, as a designer, you want to understand your user so that they stay connected, understand what you mean. Understanding the user is not enough, because fulfilling the function is still not enough. But to empathize and to propose ideas that is fresh, with love, with trust, and with cleverness, that's more important. Also, just getting the bare minimum, maybe you may not able to excite your client. Yeah, so eventually is how do you empathize and you apply it with a wow factor. Yeah, that's my 3. Yeah, it's a combination of a lot of things. Yeah.
Nice, nice. David, for your side, for yourself.
I'm so glad to hear both Wai Lim and Ping Kai mention empathy, because it is the first on my list as well. Okay, no matter it's one single product or a total solution, it's always being used by people. So human-centered design is definitely the key to a successful solution, I would say. All right, so that's my first. My second is a resourceful mindset. Okay, we are being taught as there's only so much that we can be taught. Okay, and there's so much more that you have to learn along the way. So how do you get those learning in? Where do you find the answers to the questions that you will find or you encounter along the way? You know, if you are given a task that you are not familiar with, you know, so what are you going to do about it? So this resourceful mindset is definitely a key, I would say, a soft skill, because you can only be taught some hard things, but how else to break out of these things that you're being taught to achieve the results? I think that is a soft skill. Okay, and the third, again, being in my own shoes, entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship will give you the ability to understand a business. And if you are able to understand the business, you will know the parameters that you need to consider to make it good and make it happen and make it successful. All right. So if you're able to understand that, you might be able to put yourself in the shoes of your clients or your bosses. You will be able to come up with answers that they are looking for. All right. So for me, these are my 3 skill sets.
Thank you, David. And thank you, Wai Lim and Ping Kai, for your wonderful sharing. I think this leads me to segue very neatly into the next portion of my sharing. So thank you so much, panelists, for your contributions. And I hope that if we have any questions that come through the Padlet, maybe if we have some time towards the end, we can get into it. But for now, let me get into the meat and potatoes of the next portion, which is to do with our new syllabus. So many of you guys have known that we are currently, right, the Product and Industrial Design Diploma. And in fact, this course has been around for over 20 years, right? In fact, coming to, someone do the quick math for me, but it's clearly more than 20 years. So, and as you can see from this slide, you know, we've got some very illustrious alumni, right? And so where do we go from here? Why have we renamed the course to Product Experience Design? So I think it's important to first maybe look at our most recent students' works to provide some context and you know, to give you guys a bit of insight. So let's begin with this first video. a project from our recently graduated alumni, Lucas. Let's move on to a bit of work from also our recent graduate, Nigel. So here we go.
Uh-oh.
So I hope that the two examples that we've shown you today give you some insights as to some of the issues that our students are starting to explore through their final year projects. But let's move on to what exactly is the difference from the syllabus from years past to where we are today. So to begin with, let's talk about the skill sets between industrial designers and UX designers. In the past, with industrial design, we've looked at particularly a singular pathway, but with core specializations, with certain core competencies such as rendering, CAD, CMF, material, and a knowledge of functional knowledge of form and aesthetics. Likewise, with manufacturing knowledge and skills in sketching for publication. However, as we look forward to the future, we know that all of this, while still important, also requires further competencies, for example, more broad-based capabilities, for example, understanding of product design in industrial design, UX, UI, and service design, right? Additional knowledge of specific skill sets, for example, digital design skills. Like what Wadi was mentioning earlier, we now need to be more multimedia, right? Design research is so critical, right? Likewise with the creative and critical thinking sort of like capabilities, understanding and familiarization with stakeholder management, and as Paddy was saying earlier, the need to be communicative in terms of persuasion, right? So communication and storytelling, but more importantly, because of the breadth of the UX design space, a lot of specializations are actually quite job dependent. So what does that mean for us in terms of our curriculum? So the T-shaped designer is almost like a meme or a stereotype by now, but the truth is that T-shape can mean many different things. Over here on the left, we look at industrial designers, in terms of the T-shape, the horizontal bar, right, for the T kind of denotes the breadth of knowledge, right? But the depth of this, broad knowledge, perhaps is quite shallow. And then in terms of where there's a lot of depth coming in, is in the core for industrial designers, for example, rendering, the CAD, CMF, material, for and so forth. But when you look at where designers need to be today, in terms of the same T shape, now it starts to look a little bit different. It's T, but it's no longer what you see on the left. Slightly different. The base level of knowledge needs to be a lot wider, and the competencies for that base level knowledge needs to deepen as well, right? And then where that specific specialization that comes in, right, is actually where you get that specialization from the job experience that you build. So, for example, if I were to use the example of our panelist, Bin Kai, in fact, Binka is not just a T-shaped designer. He can be perceived as someone who's a pie-shaped designer, where the verticals, more than just one vertical, there's multiple verticals. So from that point of view, we believe as a course that a solid but broad foundation of multiple competencies is required to resolve and to solve complex problems of the future. So let's take a look at what we do in this in our curriculum. There's our curriculum pillars. So we know that within the course itself, we are design-based, but now we are also having a new foundation program that's just come in. So we have 6 subjects, the first being form and materiality. We also have aesthetic and design, which covers a lot of graphic-based content. We have videography. We also have design in context, which is more understanding the history of design, and not just in one particular domain, but maybe in film and architecture, fashion, so on and so forth. Right. We also have discovering design, which is about design frameworks and ways of thinking in a designly way, right, as well as photography. So these 6 subjects form the common foundation program that all incoming students, starting from this year. So in fact, we just had our current year 1 has already gone through this program, and subsequent students who are coming in next year and following years will go through this same program. The next one for us really is looking at our core, which is to do with usability, experience, and systems. So in year 1.2, I mean to say that from the 2nd semester onwards, so just to backtrack a little bit, the Common Foundation program is only for the 1st semester. 2nd semester, the students go back to their quote-unquote home diplomas, right? And so from their 1.2 stage through to 2.1, the work and the modules that they engage in to do with that usability and experience space. As they progress, they build on that, those fundamentals in Common Foundation, as well as their 1.2 and 2.1, and then they become more of a product experience integrator, where they start to understand a bit more about business and business transformation. And then to round it all off, when they go into year 3, right, as they go into an industry studio project, their internships, as well as their final year project, they become that social innovator, where they have that wider awareness of maybe more macro needs, more bigger picture issues. So all of that kind of ties into what the course really stands for. We want our students to not just be a product designer in terms of the product experience space, but an integrator as well as a social innovator. So let's look at it from a timeline perspective. So this is where the jargon starts to come about. Okay, so draw your mind back to that meeting chat, that picture that Julius has put for us inside the meeting chat. So the typical 3-year polytechnic education is known as PET, or pre-employment training. So if we look at that, what we observe as a wider trend, the government, government is pushing for is for CET, also known as continuous education and training, whereby after your diploma or even after your university degree, you come back and you upskill yourself through short courses, specialist dips, so on and so forth. So in terms of where our curriculum stands, we start off with the Common Design Program, also known as Common Foundation. Then we talk about, or we get the students to go through the subject and modules that cover usability design, thereafter experience design, and then the social design aspect, but not in its entirety for social design. We understand that we have limited time with our students, so we cover it up to a certain point, right? So along the way, the way the students are able to problem solve starts from first the synthesizing, then the definition, and then the application aspects. At a high level, we recognize that students need to understand service design, right? But again, we also recognize that with the amount of time that we have, and also with the types of projects that we bring in, we want to expose them to it, but maybe given the wide swathe of types of projects and types of domains service design covers, this really needs to be spilled over into the CET space, and likewise for system design as well. So from that point of view, what we project and what we hope to see is how our PET education, our PET curriculum dovetails into CET in terms of specialization. So our PET covers a broad swathe of core competencies, fundamental skill sets, right, that are applicable to across the industry, But then where students want to specialize, they can then go into the CT programs that we currently offer, for example, Specialist Diploma in Branding, right, which covers things like corporate identity, commercial branding, copywriting, and so forth. Thereafter, there is the Specialist Diploma in Integrated Digital Communication, which is, covers more of the digital marketing aspect. Then what we hope as a course is to propose a specialist diploma in sustainable practice, so address things such as future trends in materials, processes, and corporate practice, and perhaps also a specialist diploma in manufacturing technology, which is more for those who want to specialize in industrial design. So this will cover manufacturing technologies, and modules on plastics, metal, and wood manufacturing processes. So this will hopefully tie in with industry partners, to ensure alignment and applied learning. What we mean by applied learning means to say it's not just learning in the classroom, but learning outside the classroom and learning in the real world environment. And then at the same time, we also hope to bring in this entrepreneurship program, or at least to get us just to get on board. We actually have this entrepreneurship program through the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Department that supports converting student projects into marketing-ready solutions. And in fact, this program has been going on for quite a number of years. So we believe at the end of the day that whatever that we do and all of the subjects that we build, the curriculum that we've come up with, this will translate into a fast transition into the workforce. At the end of the day, we are building competencies for employment. So we believe that whatever that we do, will allow baseline competencies at a PET level, and then through CET, there is this specialization into specific job sectors, right? Based on your interest, and also, of course, at the same time, based on what the market and what the industry is demanding at this point in time. So let's quickly deep dive into what we will cover, outside of the Common Design program, because I think we need to just briefly touch on this a little bit. So in semester 1.2, there is this product design foundation that will cover things like subjects like object visualization, prototyping essentials, student project 1. These are we are focusing a lot more on the rigor of foundation from sketching through to prototyping, right? We believe that if students cannot draw, it's okay. We'll be there. We'll transform you, right? And we will build your competencies in this aspect. As they move into the 2.1 semester, the subjects that we bring in are about 3D printing, UI design, CAD, as well as the ability to design a solution that covers both physical and digital space. And lastly, for 2.2, we hope to cover business and the customer experience aspect and innovations therein, right? So we, for example, currently I'm teaching as part of the Studio Project 3 team, where we're looking at existing businesses and proposing design-based solutions from opportunities that are identified through stakeholder behavior and business needs. So at this point, we're also looking at 3.1 at industry and internship and some of the advanced tools that the students will be doing. So, for example, to be exposed to AR, VR, live industry projects and subjects. So this is where students can really apply all they've learned, right, over the prior 2 years, identifying pain points and problems from real-world scenarios, and potentially through stakeholder management as well. And at the same time, we also want things to be real, right? So we also teach students rapid prototyping processes that enable the creation of what we call MVP. What's the word? MVP stands for minimum viable product. So yes, my switch off for a moment. So all of this, we believe is kind of like a core skill set, ability to create this MVP, right? And then lastly, at the major project stage, right, where we pull together, the industry and all of the innovative and social design aspects, right, into our 3 pillars, which is digital, care, and green. So going back to that 3 economies that the government was talking about, the green economy, the care economy, the digital economy, this has manifested itself even just from this year alone. We've collaborated with 6 companies: PUB, NEA, SCDF, SIA, Engineering Good, in collaboration with Google, as well as SG Enable. So hopefully for all this, you can start to see where the course is going, what our core focus is, but also what we're projecting to happen in the future, and what we hope to propose down the line to kind of flesh out your education, or rather the students' experience from the fundamentals and through to the specializations. Right. So at this point, I'm coming to my last slide. Right. So thank you all for hanging in there and being with me today, being with together with my 3 illustrious panelists. I would like all of you guys to, first of all, I want to thank you for attending the webinar. This is actually a survey. This is a survey QR code, right? And we hope for you guys to perhaps click on scan the QR code and let us know what you found, how you found this today's sharing. Please do not forget to check us out on Instagram, our social media page, which is handled by my illustrious colleague Amir, who's sitting right next to me. We have a lot of wonderful content that has come on board. I see all of the reactions to Amir's name, so well done, Amir, in that regard, right? And we look forward to just building on today's conversation, really building on what we have shared today, because as a course, we're not just the people who are in the teaching team, but we are the course is more than that. Today with our panelists, every single one of them are alumni from this program, right? And we look forward to students coming in the near future as alumni, to share their experience and to share hopefully how this program has really benefited them. So from that point of view, I'd like to thank you all once again for your time. I do apologize for running over a little bit, right? But that is the conclusion for today's webinar. I hope you have found it illustrious. I hope you have found it enlightening, right, and illuminating. That's all from me. My name is Eric, right? And I look forward to, if you guys want to get in touch, please feel free to get in touch through the Instagram account, or perhaps you can find me. Most of you guys probably know, most of the students here will know my contact details. But if you wish to contact me, please feel free to inquire through our Instagram, or you can even find me on LinkedIn as well. So that's it for me today. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, audience. Thank you, my colleagues, for helping me out to make today's webinar happen. That's it from me. All right. Thank you so much, and ciao. See you guys.